All right, I believe we're live. It says preparing.
Welcome, everybody.
Welcome to another episode of Positively Family Law. Sorry for the little delay there, but we are back, and we will continue to be back every Friday at 3:30.
Hopefully, barring any. So one of the reasons is I had LASIK. So if anybody wants to know that story, feel free to message us. We won't talk about it now, but it was awesome. And I can see everything, so it's great.
Great. That's awesome.
It pushed back our Facebook Lives.
Yes, and then I took time off too, so just
Yep.
We're back on track now, though, so that's all. Okay, so today it's gonna be a little different. It's gonna be a little back to basics is what I'd like to call it, because we're gonna go through when should you hire an attorney for your divorce versus when you could probably do it on your own and be okay. I think that's a big question that I get all the time is, well, do I really need an attorney? Like, can we just file this on our own? Can we just file for divorce on our own? Heather, the short answer is yes, you can, technically. Doesn't mean
you can do anything on your own.
So you definitely can, but there are a long list of benefits to hiring a good, like, trying to think, responsible and a trustworthy attorney to be in your corner through the process.
An ethical attorney.
Yes, that too. That's also very in the realm of law. So let's jump right into it. So I'm going to let Heather take the floor and go over what are some positives to hiring an attorney.
Okay. So I thought you were going to have more questions for me, so I'll just have to shoot from the hip here. So basically, sorry, say that again.
I have some other ones like trailing down, like I have a list. I was just going to go through.
Okay, well, I'll just start talking, and then if I hit any of your questions, you can cross them off the list, and if I don't, then you can ask me. So I think with any legal proceeding, whether it's a divorce or a custody case or anything that it is, you can always do it on your own. If it's a matter of you need something done and you don't feel as though you have the money in order to do it, and you think you have to hire an attorney, that's not true. There's something that if you go to the court and you really don't have money, this isn't for people who just don't want to spend the money. This is for people who don't actually have the money. So if you go, you can file what's called an affidavit of indigency. And it's basically something asking for the court to waive any fees that might be involved, to have the state cover the costs involved in in service. So once you file a complaint for divorce, you have to have the other side served. You can ask the state to pay that. Again, that's only for people who really need it. If you're hiring an attorney, you probably don't really need it. But if there's any question of, can I move forward? The same thing with a modification. I've seen a lot of cases where people feel very stuck because they don't feel as though they've been in a position where they can hire an attorney. So they just don't do anything. I would highly advise you, there's the lawyer of the day programs within the court. And I think the court is going to start being more in person, but right now the lawyer of the day, I believe, is appearing virtually as well. So don't let the fact you can't afford an attorney keep you from moving your case forward. That being said, it's always going to be better to have an attorney behind you. And there's a lot of different ways you can do that. But I'll go, with the most basic examples. We've had quite a few cases, and I can think of 3 that we're working on right now, where the parties divorced and they did it pro se. They filled out the paperwork. It was very amicable. They agreed to everything. However, they forgot to mention any of the property that they have within their divorce, and it left them in a situation where years later, one of them doesn't want to be paying for the property anymore, but they never addressed it within the divorce. So basically now we have to go back in and redo everything that if they had just done it right the first time, it would have been probably a lot more efficient. So even if you think you're doing everything well, even if you're able to work with the other side, there are benefits at the very least. Have an attorney look over your separation agreement. When you walk in, they're going to be able to say, well, these things are typically in here. So is this, do you have any property? And if the answer is yes to that, then they'll walk you through what to do. If the answer is no, or if you lie to them, there's not much that they can do to even help you. But typically a judge isn't going to ask all those questions when they're on the bench. And if you miss things, it can be really detrimental. The same thing, I've seen a lot of agreements where people just miss really, really big things, or especially with retirement accounts. People might be eligible for a lot more, and they think that they're waiving their right, the other side's waiving a right to a 401k, and they're waiving a right to a pension. Well, a pension is worth a lot more than a 401k. And if you don't understand the differences of what you're getting versus what you're giving, you can give up a lot without even knowing it. So to make sure that it's done correctly, at the very least, one of the things that we do for people who either they don't have a big contested case, or they don't have the money to hire an attorney to do all the work, is just do a document review, or we might be able to draft up that, that agreement based on what you're saying the agreements are between you and your ex. Or we could also represent you, but negotiate that if you don't know where your ex stands. So there's a lot of ways to be able to do it if finances are an issue. But having an attorney there to, number one, make sure that the arguments, if your case is contested, the arguments that are being presented to the court are the ones that they need to hear. And here's an example of how everything goes terribly wrong. Let's say we're fighting in court, and so it's Heather versus Kayla, and we get up to the court, and you go up there and you say, Heather is a horrible person. She cheated on me 27 times. I think, she's hiding money. And the issue is very simply, I need to use the car. Let's say I'm really simplifying things, but if that's the issue, and I hear everything bad that you're saying, which obviously makes me very upset, and I want to be able to counter, because I don't want the judge to think, I'm this crazy person. So I start arguing about that and never get out the reasons why I need the car. The court's not going to grant me the car. And then I'm going to leave and say, the court didn't give it to me because they believed everything she said. No, the court didn't give it to me because I didn't lay the argument out that the court needs to hear in order to give me what I'm looking for. And that's what an attorney can do. They can kind of wade through, I want to say, the BS and really get to the main points. And that comes from knowing what a judge needs to hear. So if you're willing to educate yourself and do a lot of reading and a lot of research, and even hire an attorney to coach you through the process, it might be something that you can do. But other than that, even in cases where there's a control issue, where one party is the one who is used to, do this, and the other person says yes, that yes person oftentimes needs a voice that's not theirs. They need a voice to be able to stand up for them, to be able to make the arguments, to be able to tell the other person no, because they're so used to saying yes. The same thing if, let's say it's a situation where the husband's been accused of being violent or aggressive, or there's false allegations. It might not be best for him to come in and start making arguments that they can then use to say, see, look, he's aggressive, he's getting upset. It might be good to have somebody else come in and be able to make the arguments, because I always say, let the person, you just be the good person, and I'll be the bad person, and I'll make the arguments that need to be made. But that way it's not necessarily being held against you, because it is very easy when you're arguing to become emotional, to become upset. And especially if you've been accused of being aggressive in any way, that emotion can often be seen as a negative and just reaffirming the fact that the allegation is probably true. So you want to try to avoid that.
That definitely answered a few of my questions. So that's good. With what you said in terms of, I think a lot of people have the idea of like, oh, if I hire an attorney, it's always going to cost me like hundreds of thousands of dollars or whatever. But, with what you said in terms of, if you can't afford someone on a full scale, like at least have them review something. Like that could make all the difference in terms of your entire outcome of a divorce, or any case per se. Just at least have a consult, have them review your documents, or hire them partially to, like you said, draft, or consult with you throughout the process and coach you. Because at the end of the day, it's an investment. Because if you go through the entire process and then it ends up getting kicked back or not granted, you're just stuck right back at route one again, and you're gonna have to do it anyway. So you might as well get it done right.
And I think the conversation we're having probably isn't meant for most people that have a ton of assets and have a complicated, if you own your own business, you want to protect that business. You want to make sure you have somebody to protect that. So this question isn't necessarily for the people that have those large estates. I think a lot of times they understand they need an attorney. It's more for the people who look at things and they're like, we don't have that much stuff. And those are the ones that you actually see the biggest mistakes in, because they don't think they have a lot. So I think the clientele we're talking to within this, most people, if you're dividing a multi-million-dollar estate, you're probably not asking whether or not you need an attorney, but it's the people who think that they can do it themselves, that don't have a lot to divide. Sometimes they're the ones that need even more protection, because they might give up things that they just didn't even know they had a right to.
Yeah. And that's where, there's a lot of things that could fall through the cracks in a divorce, especially. Mm-hmm. And you don't want to risk that, because then in 10 years, you're like, oh shit, like where did that go? Like what happened to it? So it's peace of mind, I think, definitely. And it is an investment.
Yeah. And there's also, I've seen a lot of agreements come in and modifications because the parties did it themselves. They felt that, they could work through, they were getting along at the time of the divorce. However, what typically happens is after the divorce, or after, the case is settled, somebody finds another relationship and, they start dating, or they bring somebody in, and then no matter how wonderfully people get along, as soon as you introduce, that significant other, so often you just see things fall apart. And where we see that the most is when people agree to a parenting plan that says, one parent has primary custody and the other parent, has parenting time as agreed upon, which sounds great in theory, because, it's not structured. It can be very flexible. But the second there's no more flexibility, you're guaranteed nothing. And so even in cases where you think you're able to work everything out because everything's going well, you typically do want some sort of fallback plan for, okay, if we're happy and we're flexible, that's great. We don't have to stick to this plan. But if, everything falls apart, we have a fallback plan where all of a sudden, I don't go from seeing my kids every other weekend to all of a sudden, I found somebody else, and Kayla, you say, oh, guess what? You're not taking them anymore because I don't agree. And that's one of the things, that's probably one of the more common things we see, is people don't put almost that contingency plan in case things go bad.
Yeah. What would you say is, somewhat of an example in which case, doing it yourself may be beneficial? Are there any examples that you could think
of? Let's see. So if you owe child support, if you have a big old child support arrearage, you may not want to spend thousands of dollars on an attorney to walk into court and then say that you have no money. If in those cases, if you are hiring an attorney, you better be able to come up with some sort of payment plan or something to be able to move the case forward. You cannot hire an attorney. We've had people call in and we advise them not to hire us, because if they walk in after paying us thousands of dollars, to say, but Your Honor, they have no money, they can't pay the $20,000 worth of child support they owe, they're going to jail. So that's probably the situation where I would say, And there's a fine line, because sometimes those people get themselves into more trouble than they need to. But that might be something where maybe you just hire the attorney for a consult and figure out what you're going to say. Or if you are able to do some sort of payment plan that the attorney can help you arrange so you keep yourself out of jail, that would be a situation. Other than that, like I said, everything can be done with without an attorney. I just advise it. And I'm biased. I also get the fact that people would be like, oh, I expect her to say that, of course. I've just seen too many things go wrong. And it's always easier to do it right the first time than to go back and try to fix mistakes. And here's a perfect example of it. Is we had a case where mom and dad entered into an agreement, and it was a bad agreement, but it basically said, if dad's employment changes, we'll revamp the parenting schedule. And it set them up then. And they then went in on, he then went in on his own, but he went in on the temporary order and somehow agreed to even less time than he had before the schedule, because he was convinced that it was just a temporary order. So, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. And then, of course, a bunch of allegations came his way. And this case has been going on for like 3.5 years. And it's a mess. It's an absolute mess. Whereas if he had hired an attorney right off the bat, probably wouldn't have entered into that agreement, and the case would have happened much quicker. I mean, I can't tell for sure, but that would have been my guess.
Yeah. Well, even what you said, I mean, it's not even about, people may say that you're biased, because you're an attorney, but it's like, there are so many different levels to hiring an attorney. It's not just always putting one on a full retainer.
Right.
You can hire them on a limited basis. That's still hiring an attorney, but, they're not doing everything for you.
Yeah. And I mean, we've even done, when somebody has a trial, trials are a little scary because it means you haven't been able to settle your case. You're walking in front of a judge, especially if you have children involved. This isn't just your life, it's your kid's life. And everybody, I think, is even more super sensitive to their children than sometimes themselves. So that can be really scary walking to a trial. And as much as during a motion for temporary orders, during that sort of hearing, you have to be able to know what you're saying to a judge. Once you get into the realms of a trial, you're dealing with evidentiary rules. You're dealing with, you need to know when somebody makes an objection, what you have to say. You need to know how to direct. If you're pulling up a witness, you need to know how to direct that witness. You need to know how to cross-examine the other side's witnesses. And even with that, depending on the legal issues you're in front of the court with, there's certain things you need to be able to get out. And if you don't get out all of them, you're not going to get the outcome that you want. So we've been able to work with people that, maybe they can't pay the funds to have, because trials are expensive. Trials are really expensive. That's, you want to talk about legal fees being expensive. If you get to a trial, that's quite a bit of money. So we have worked and coached people and, worked with them to teach them, some of their basic evidentiary rules, how to cross-examine, how to create that, so that way they have a better idea going into it, what to expect and what they need to do. So we've done that as well.
Okay. Now, attorney or by yourself aside, what are some of the big obstacles that you run into when you're dealing with a divorce or through the divorce process, just like in general? And how would having an attorney by your side really make a difference getting through those obstacles?
I mean, that's such a broad question.
Three of the big ones, 3 big obstacles that you would run into in a divorce process in general, and how would an attorney help you through those?
I mean, I don't even think there's things that go across the board.
There's 3 that you can think of.
I'm sure there are. So, I mean, usually the biggest things, and we heard it today, during one of our calls, are people are afraid that the other side is hiding money. They're afraid that they're somehow going to try to attempt to not allow them to get the property distribution that they're entitled to. An attorney can really delve through the paperwork, make sure that you have all the records that you need to know whether or not there's those sorts of questions. An attorney, I think this is a good one. And I think it comes up even with an attorney, is where divorce can be extremely emotional, and if you're angry, if you're jealous, if you're resentful, if there's feelings of revenge, because we see that all the time, screw them, I don't want them to get anything. We see all those things. An attorney's job is almost to help guide through that, not encourage it, not be like, yeah, let's take them for everything they're worth. If the attorney's saying that, you have the wrong attorney. That wouldn't be what I would consider an ethical or an efficient attorney. You have somebody who's after the money because they see, oh, let's go fight. Sometimes you have to fight, but you always have to do your cost benefit analysis. So I think it's very easy within a divorce or a custody matter to let the emotions drive the car. And those emotions often end up with things being more complicated. You don't see the separation agreement or the settlement agreement. You don't see that as business negotiations. It means something to you more than the words on the paper. And oftentimes an attorney, and I know we do it all the time, we say, okay, what's going on here? What is actually the problem? Because, and I think I've brought up this example before, and it's one of my favorites. I had to fight for like hours over a trash barrel because there were 5 trash barrels, 2 had wheels, 3 had wheels, 2 didn't have wheels. And we were fighting over that middle trash barrel with wheels. I charge hundreds of dollars per hour. And finally, like, my client kept saying, no, I want it. And I had to say, with how much money you have spent on legal fees at this point, you could have bought a gold-plated Louis Vuitton trash barrel that walks itself out to the street, dumps the trash in, and comes on back. But instead, you just spent thousands of dollars fighting over a $25 bucket. And that's where some of it comes into client control. I will also say I probably could have put my foot down a lot sooner. It didn't in that case. And it's one of the things I regret, but it's little things like that people get really hung up on, those facts. And you have to be able to draw back. And a lot of times that's where an attorney can come in.
Yeah. I like that example of like, emotions can kind of drive the car, and then you're stuck in a situation that you don't want to be, or fighting over a trash can that really doesn't matter.
Or fighting over, I spent so holiday schedules. And again, I don't remember if we've talked about this before. Holidays schedules are always conflicted. There's always discussions, especially when you get involved Christmas and things along those lines. So I was working this case and we had spent quite a while talking about the holiday schedule, finally get through it all. And then they start arguing about Hanukkah. And, I want these many nights, and no, you're not getting that. I want this. And I'm thinking back and I'm like, guys, neither one of you are Jewish. Like, what are we fighting over? And it's those things that are very easy to lose sight of what the ultimate goal is. And the ultimate goal is to get out of the court process as quickly as possible. You don't want to be involved in the court process.
Yeah. So it is good. I mean, it's having an attorney, I truly believe that it is investment. I know people probably think of it as, an expense, but I consider it an investment, because I can't tell you how many times people have come to us where they're like, we either did it on our own and, the judge denied it, or we're stuck back at square one, or I hired this attorney that charged a lot less and now I'm stuck. He's a horrible person, or they're a horrible attorney and they don't care, and they went on vacation for 2 weeks and I haven't heard from them. Like, you get what you pay for. And when you
most of the time, there's probably some good ones out there that do it extremely cheaply and they do a good job. So for the ones that are out there doing it, I don't want to diminish them either. But for the most part, if somebody calls us and says, oh, I called somebody else and they'll do it for $100 an hour, I say, well, good for you. Good luck. And you can call us back when everything's screwed up and you need it fixed. I can't promise that we'll take your case. So
I mean, it's not to say that people who charge less are bad, no, but you know, there is this consensus of, well, if they're doing it a lot cheaper, they probably have a lot more clients, and you're probably going to get lost in the shuffle, or you know, maybe
Or
they're
they
not,
don't have the experience.
yeah,
You know?
or they're just starting and they can charge what, you know, that little amount, but you know, you're not going to get the representation that you want, and you know, if you pay for good representation, you should get good representation. And I think the thing is, when you hire an attorney, that should give you peace of mind. And I like that we do a very good job of giving our clients peace of mind when they go through this process, because it's so emotional, regardless of the matter.
And I think, sorry to jump in, but I just thought of it. One of the important things is, just like anything, just because somebody has the title of attorney doesn't mean that they're the best attorney for you. And whether it's our firm or it's somebody else, typically do not just hire the first attorney that you call, because you just might not gel. You know, you need to have the relationship, you need to have the trust. So I don't want this conversation to be like, oh, I have to hire an attorney and then just hire any attorney. Make sure that you've done your due diligence, make sure you've really researched the person or the firm, and that you feel confident that this is somebody who you can talk to. Because if you don't feel like you can talk to the people who are representing you, that's an issue, because we need to know a lot about you in order to represent you.
Yeah. And that's another thing where like consultations and stuff like that really come in handy, because you get to meet the attorney. You know, you're able to see how they would handle your case, so you have a better understanding of who you're giving all of this trust to. And obviously, you know, sometimes personalities don't mix, but it's better for you to know that in the beginning than halfway through your divorce, when you're like, oh my God, I hate her, or something like that.
And we like consults too, because sometimes we can weed people out, because we don't just let anyone hire us. You know, we try to find good clients. We try to find people who we want to fight for because we actually believe them and, you know, like them. And there's been a number of people who called in and we declined their case just because either one, it might be something that we morally don't agree with and we can't zealously represent, or, you know, like you're saying, kind of the personalities just don't gel. We look for people who can take direction and, you know, aren't going to be, because I see, you know, the attorney-client relationship as a co-relationship. But if you have that backseat driver who is like, no, do it this way, do it this way, do it this way, and it's not that relationship, that doesn't work on our end either.
Yeah. I think another big thing is like, we want people who want to better themselves through this process and not just get back at their ex, or, you know, make the other person's life a living hell. Like, we want, you know, if you're going to sit there and all your whole goal is to just, you know, put your ex in the ground, like, that's not really what we want to do. We want you to grow through this process, and we're there to help you, but we're not in the revenge business.
And my lawn care guys did just show up, so it's going to get really loud, so we might want to end this now.
Examples in terms of, you know, how overall getting at least an attorney's opinion on your situation is a benefit. Some point, just have the attorney review the document or talk to an attorney in some way. I'm not saying you have to go put down a $10,000 retainer tomorrow, but, you know, make sure that you have some sort of direction in your case, because it can help you.
Yep.
And we're here to provide peace of mind through that as well. So if you have any questions, if you'd like us to review your case, give us a call.
Yep. So like our Facebook page, follow us on YouTube, do all the fun things that you do when you follow people, send us questions. We're happy to answer the questions that you actually want to hear instead of just telling you what we think you want to hear. And other than that, I hope everybody has a fantastic weekend and a great week next week.
Enjoy the nice weather.
Yeah, finally.
Bye.
Okay, bye.